Okay, so now what? This is the Radio Don podcast. I am the aforementioned. The views expressed are mine and mine alone. You can find this podcast on Spotify, YouTube /at Radio Don, the number one, and anywhere else you can find a podcast, most places at least. You can follow and support us anywhere we are in the world of unsocial media by going to our link tree, which is linktree/Radio Don. That's linktr.ee/Radio Don. Do not forget. By now, you know what happened on Sunday. We are recording this the Monday after it happened. The Monday after Joe Biden sent a message on social media saying that he is no longer running for president, that he will continue to serve out his term until January 22nd, 2025, and that he is endorsing his Vice President Kamala Harris, a person who has yet to find out who her running mate is, but she's got 3 or 4 weeks to do so because the convention is coming up in August. And I have been in a blue funk over this ever since. Yes, I'm seeing a lot of, okay, rah, rah, let's get behind her and stuff like that, which we should. I am a progressive, so I will support the Democratic candidate. I'm trying to keep things progressive and also trying to keep this country from going down the Project 2025 expressway. But we did this the wrong way. First off, right now, the polling between Biden and the 45th President of the United States is really close. It's really close. 45 is ahead by about 3 points. No one is in the aggregate getting 50%. And things could change in the 104 days before the election. Meaning that it is still possible, or was still possible, that Joe Biden could actually pull this off. Now, a lot of people were talking about his age. He is, I believe, 81 or 82 right now. And a lot of people don't think that he would make it to the end of a first term. This is how they should have done this. You keep propping up both Joe and Kamala. You have a medical team follow Joe Biden around 24/7. You keep him propped up as much as humanly possible. For that second debate in September, you keep him as far away from NyQuil, Dayquil, Sudafed, whatever, as much as humanly possible. You feed him Prevagen intravenously if you need to. Keep him upright until the election, and you do anything possible to make sure he wins, you keep him propped up until January 22nd. Make sure he takes the oath of office and make sure he is upright through the acceptance speech. Keep him alive until 1 p.m. January 22nd, Eastern Standard Time. And then the medical team can go on vacation and let nature take its course. Joe slips, falls, expires. Kamala Harris now becomes President of the United States and finishes out Joe Biden's term. But wait, here comes the Constitution. If you work this thing right, this is what could happen. Kamala Harris runs for president, but this time she's running for her own term as president because the Constitution says you can only run for president twice. Kamala hasn't run for president at this particular point under my scenario. She just basically accepted the term of a fallen president or a president who cannot continue because of reasons. She becomes president. She runs for her first elected term. She goes through that, and then she runs again. She can run again because this is her second elected term. The first one was basically filling out the term of her old boss. Now she's in her first elected term. She can run again. And she wins and completes that term. That means that Kamala Harris would have served as president for 11 years, 364 days, and 5 hours. She would become the closest thing in our generation to FDR. Oh, and by the way, in that nearly 12-year span, she gets to fill every single Supreme Court justice vacancy. Every single one. Imagine what that would do. If the Democrats were smart, they would have done that. The Democrats have proven that they are just as intelligent as Republicans. Let that sink in. If you think what the Republicans and the Seven Mountains Coalition that controls that party, if you think what they did to Joe Biden was bad, we've just gotten a sneak preview of what is in store for candidate Kamala Harris a few days ago. Benjamin Gorka, some of you probably have heard of the guy. He was an assistant to the former president. He is, I think, uh, he was born in what used to be known as the Soviet Union, and he has a radio talk show on the Salem Media Radio Network. Yeah, the same people who put out um, 2,000 Mules. So you know they are a font of reliable information. I would put what Mr. Gorka said about Miss Harris here in this spot with proper attributions, of course. The thing is, A, I find it distasteful, and B, I don't think on the various platforms that this podcast is going to be placed on, it would be acceptable. Someone was talking about Harris, and he broke in and said, "Wait a second, you're talking logic here. She is a woman, and she is, let's just say it was a highly chromatic slur against African American humans. A term that people like myself recall back in the 1960s, especially in the deep, 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 deep South. Yeah, that term. That is what is awaiting Kamala Harris. Because, let's face it, this is a pretty racist country when you really get down to it. And the Seven Mountains Coalition that wants to infect this country with their Project 2025 cancer will do anything to get in, and that is including playing on the prejudices of people mostly in the flyover. I wish it wasn't so. I wish that people in those areas were just basically having a problem with taxes or freedom or whatever. No. They've already had one African American president, and that basically gave us the 45th president. Now, in most of their latter years, you are offering the possibility of not only a non Caucasian president, but a female president as well. And not to mention the fact that she is also pretty much to the left of how most of these people feel about stuff. So, yes, the race card will be played. They have several. We better be ready for that. And we better be ready to fight that. Before I go, just a quick reminder about first where you can find us. Um, we are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts at youtube.com/, at Radio Don 1. We are on platforms like Pocket Cast and pretty much everywhere you can find a podcast. I do believe we're also on iHeartMedia, believe it or not. All you have to do is just put in RADIODON, and hopefully you'll be able to find us. Also, your support is welcome. There are several ways you can do that. I believe there is a link in the Spotify platform where you can actually send some support. You can also go to our link tree. That's linktree/Radio Don. That's linktr.ee/RADIODON. And there should be a link in the show notes with that. You can go there. If you want to support us, there's a little piggyback that pops up. We've also opened up a store where you can peruse many things, and we'll be adding to that as we can. You can also follow us anywhere we are in terms of social media, especially YouTube, where I'm spending most of my time. You can also follow us on my Substack. I sometimes post, let's just say, the stuff that could get me banned on all the other social media platforms. That would be at radiodon.substack.com. radiodon.substack.com. And that's it for right now. We hope that you have a great day, and we will talk to you very, very soon. Take care. Bye-bye. This episode of the Radio Don podcast was recorded on July 22nd, 2024. It is a production of DLP Entertainment Systems. The views expressed are mine and mine alone and do not necessarily reflect the views of any of the companies that host this podcast. Thank you very much for listening.